I've always been fascinated by athletes. These extraordinary human beings who can push their bodies to do things that seem impossible to the rest of us. They run faster, jump higher, lift more, and endure longer than what we think the human body should be capable of. But here's what really gets me excited about studying athletes. It's not their natural talent that makes them great. Oh, sure, talent helps, but I've seen plenty of talented people fail, and I've seen plenty of people with modest talent achieve extraordinary things. No, what makes athletes great is their approach to training, their discipline, their consistency, their willingness to do today what others won't do, so they can achieve tomorrow what others won't achieve. And here's the question that changed my life. If we can train our bodies to perform at extraordinary levels, why don't we apply the same principles to training our minds? Think about it. Your mind is far more powerful than your body. Your mind is far more important to your success than your physical strength. Your mind determines your income more than your muscles do. Your mind shapes your future more than your athletic ability ever will. Yet most people spend more time training their bodies than they spend training their minds. They'll spend an hour at the gym but won't spend 10 minutes reading a book. They'll carefully plan their workout routine but leave their mental development to chance. That's like having a Ferrari engine and putting regular gas in it. That's like owning a computer and never updating the software. That's like having the most valuable asset in the world and treating it like it doesn't matter. Your mind is your most valuable asset. But like any asset, it requires training, development, and maintenance to perform at its peak. Let me tell you about a conversation I had with a professional football player years ago. This man was at the top of his game, earning millions of dollars, performing in front of millions of people. I asked him about his training routine. He told me he trained 6 days a week, sometimes twice a day. He had a strength coach, a speed coach, a nutrition coach, and a skills coach. He studied film of his opponents. He practiced specific plays hundreds of times until they became automatic. He pushed his body to its limits and then pushed a little more. Then I asked him what he did to train his mind. He looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language. Train my mind, he said. My mind is fine. It's my body that needs the work. That's when I realized he had it exactly backwards. His body was already in incredible shape. It was his mind that was limiting his potential. It was his mental approach that was holding him back from being truly great. You see, your body will only take you as far as your mind will let it go. Your performance will only be as strong as your mental training allows it to be. Your success will only be as great as your mindset permits it to become. Most people have this backwards. They think success is about physical effort. They think achievement is about working harder with their hands. They think wealth is about what they can physically produce. But I'm here to tell you something that might shock you. Success is 80% mental and 20% physical. Achievement is more about what happens between your ears than what happens with your hands. Wealth is more about how you think than how hard you work. Now, this doesn't mean physical work doesn't matter. Of course it matters, but mental work matters more. Mental training is the foundation that makes physical work effective. Mental discipline is what allows physical effort to produce extraordinary results. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you consciously worked on improving your thinking? When was the last time you deliberately practiced mental skills like focus, concentration, or visualization? When was the last time you trained your mind the way an athlete trains their body? If you're like most people, the answer is probably never. And that's exactly why most people achieve ordinary results instead of extraordinary results. But today, that changes. Today, you're going to learn how to train your mind like an athlete trains their body. Today, you're going to discover the mental training principles that can transform your performance in every area of life. The first principle of mental training is consistency. Athletes don't train once a week and expect great results. They don't work out when they feel like it. They don't skip training because they're not in the mood. No, athletes train every day, sometimes twice a day. They train when they're tired. They train when they're sore. They train when they don't want to train. Because they understand that consistency is the mother of mastery. Your mind needs the same consistent training. You can't read one book and expect your thinking to transform. You can't listen to one motivational speech and expect your mindset to change permanently. You can't practice mental skills occasionally and expect extraordinary results. Mental training requires daily practice, daily investment, daily commitment, just like physical training. I learned this lesson early in my personal development journey. I would get excited about changing my life, read a few books, attend a seminar, and then stop. I'd go back to my old thinking patterns. I'd return to my old mental habits, and then I'd wonder why my life wasn't changing. That's when I realized I was treating mental development like a hobby instead of like training. I was approaching it casually instead of systematically. I was being inconsistent instead of disciplined, so I made a decision. I decided to train my mind every single day. I committed to reading for at least 30 minutes every day. I committed to listening to educational material during my commute. I committed to writing in a journal every morning. I committed to practicing gratitude every evening. At first, it felt like work. My mind resisted the discipline just like a body resists exercise when you first start working out. But gradually it became easier. Then it became natural. Then it became automatic. And as my mental training became consistent, my results became extraordinary. As my thinking improved, my income improved. As my mindset developed, my opportunities expanded. As my mental discipline strengthened, my life transformed. That's the power of consistency in mental training. Small daily improvements compound into massive life changes. Regular mental exercise builds extraordinary mental strength. Consistent mental discipline creates extraordinary life results. The second principle of mental training is progressive overload. In physical training, athletes gradually increase the weight, the distance, or the intensity to continue improving. They don't lift the same weight every day and expect to get stronger. They don't run the same distance every day and expect to get faster. They progressively challenge themselves. They continuously raise the bar. They systematically increase the demands on their bodies to force adaptation and growth. Your mind needs the same progressive overload. You can't read the same level of books forever and expect your thinking to improve. You can't tackle the same mental challenges repeatedly and expect to grow. You can't stay in your mental comfort zone and expect extraordinary development. You must progressively challenge your mind. You must continuously expand your mental capacity. You must systematically increase the demands on your thinking to force mental growth. What does this look like practically? It means reading more challenging books over time. It means taking on bigger projects that stretch your mental capabilities. It means learning new skills that force you to think differently. It means setting bigger goals that require greater mental capacity. I remember when I first started reading personal development books. I started with simple, basic books that were easy to understand. But as my mental capacity grew, I began reading more complex material. Philosophy, psychology, advanced business strategy, economics. Each level of reading challenged me more than the last. Each book forced me to think harder, understand deeper, and process more complex ideas. This progressive overload built my mental strength, just like progressive weight training builds physical strength. The same principle applies to every area of mental training. If you want to improve your focus, you must progressively increase the demands on your attention. Start with short periods of concentrated focus and gradually extend them. If you want to improve your memory, you must progressively challenge your recall abilities. If you want to improve your problem-solving skills, you must progressively tackle more complex problems. Progressive overload prevents mental plateaus. It ensures continuous growth. It guarantees that your mental capacity keeps expanding rather than stagnating. The third principle of mental training is specificity. Athletes don't just exercise randomly. They train specifically for their sport. A sprinter trains differently than a marathon runner. A powerlifter trains differently than a gymnast. A football player trains differently than a tennis player. Each athlete's training is specifically designed to improve the skills and abilities required for their particular performance demands. Your mental training must be equally specific. You must train your mind for the specific mental demands of your goals, your career, your life circumstances. If you're an entrepreneur, you need to train your mind for risk assessment, decision making under uncertainty, and creative problem solving. If you're in sales, you need to train your mind for persuasion, relationship building, and rejection resilience. If you're a leader, you need to train your mind for strategic thinking, emotional intelligence, and inspirational communication. You can't just engage in general mental exercise and expect specific improvements. You must target your mental training to develop the specific mental skills you need for success in your chosen field. I learned this when I transitioned from being an employee to becoming an entrepreneur. The mental skills I needed as an employee were different from the mental skills I needed as a business owner. As an employee, I needed to follow instructions, complete tasks, and work within systems. As an entrepreneur, I needed to create instructions, design tasks, and build systems. My mental training had to become more specific. I had to develop entrepreneurial thinking patterns. I had to strengthen my tolerance for uncertainty. I had to build my capacity for strategic planning and risk assessment. This required specific mental exercises. I studied successful entrepreneurs. I practiced making decisions with incomplete information. I trained myself to see opportunities where others saw problems. I developed my ability to think long-term while acting short-term. This specific mental training prepared me for entrepreneurial success in ways that general mental exercise never could have. The fourth principle of mental training is recovery and regeneration. Athletes understand that growth happens during recovery, not just during training. They understand that rest is not the opposite of work. Rest is what makes work effective. Elite athletes schedule recovery time just as carefully as they schedule training time. They understand that without adequate recovery, performance declines, injuries increase, and progress stops. Your mind needs the same recovery and regeneration. Mental training without mental recovery leads to mental burnout. Continuous mental stimulation without periods of mental rest leads to decreased mental performance. But here's what most people get wrong about mental recovery. They think mental recovery means mindless entertainment. They think rest means watching television, scrolling through social media, or engaging in other passive activities. That's not recovery. That's mental junk food. That's feeding your mind garbage instead of giving it proper rest. Real mental recovery means giving your mind space to process, integrate, and consolidate what you've learned. It means meditation, reflection, quiet contemplation. It means walks in nature without distractions. It means quality sleep that allows your brain to repair and reorganize. I learned this lesson the hard way. In my enthusiasm for mental development, I used to fill every spare moment with learning. I would read during breakfast, listen to educational material in the car, attend seminars on weekends, and study late into the evening. I thought more input would lead to better results. But instead, I found myself overwhelmed, confused, and unable to implement what I was learning. I was consuming information faster than I could digest it. I was taking in more than I could process. That's when I realized I needed mental recovery time. I needed periods of quiet reflection to think about what I had learned. I needed space to connect new ideas with existing knowledge. I needed time to plan how to implement new concepts. When I started scheduling mental recovery time, my learning became more effective. When I created space for reflection, my insights became deeper. When I allowed time for mental rest, my mental performance improved. Mental recovery is not time wasted. It's time invested in making your mental training more effective. The fifth principle of mental training is measurement and tracking. Athletes don't train blindly. They measure their progress constantly. They track their performance meticulously. They know exactly where they stand and where they need to improve. They time their runs. They count their repetitions. They measure their strength gains. They analyze their performance data. This measurement allows them to adjust their training, celebrate their progress, and identify areas that need more work. Your mental training needs the same measurement and tracking. You can't improve what you don't measure. You can't manage what you don't track. You can't optimize what you don't monitor. But how do you measure mental training progress? How do you track improvements in thinking, learning, and mental performance? There are many ways. You can track the books you read and the insights you gain from them. You can measure your focus by timing how long you can concentrate without distraction. You can track your memory by testing your recall of information you've studied. You can measure your problem-solving speed by timing how quickly you can work through mental challenges. You can also track the results that your mental training produces in your life. Are you making better decisions? Are you solving problems more effectively? Are you learning new skills faster? Are you achieving your goals more consistently? I keep what I call a mental training journal. Every day, I record what mental exercises I practiced, what I learned, what insights I gained, and how I applied new knowledge. I track my reading progress, my learning goals, and my mental performance metrics. This tracking serves multiple purposes. It keeps me accountable to my mental training commitments. It helps me see patterns in my learning and performance. It allows me to celebrate progress and identify areas that need more attention. It provides data that helps me optimize my mental training routine. Without measurement, mental training becomes random activity. With measurement, mental training becomes systematic improvement. The sixth principle of mental training is variety and cross-training. Elite athletes don't just practice their sport. They engage in cross-training activities that support their primary performance. They do different types of exercises that build different capabilities. They vary their training to prevent boredom and promote well-rounded development. A runner might swim to build cardiovascular endurance without impact stress. A football player might practice yoga to improve flexibility and body awareness. A tennis player might lift weights to build power and prevent injury. This variety keeps training interesting, prevents overuse injuries, and builds complementary skills that enhance primary performance. Your mental training needs the same variety and cross-training. You can't just read books in your field and expect well-rounded mental development. You can't just practice one type of mental skill and expect comprehensive mental fitness. You need to vary your mental training. Read different types of books. Study different subjects. Practice different mental skills. Engage different parts of your mind. Read fiction to improve your imagination and empathy. Read history to understand patterns and context. Read science to develop analytical thinking. Read philosophy to deepen your wisdom. Read biography to learn from others' experiences. Practice different mental skills. Work on memory exercises. Practice logical reasoning. Develop creative thinking. Strengthen emotional intelligence. Build communication skills. This mental cross-training builds mental versatility. It prevents mental staleness. It develops capabilities that you might not even realize you need until you need them. I practice mental cross-training by deliberately exposing myself to different types of learning experiences. I read books outside my field. I take courses in subjects that interest me but aren't directly related to my work. I engage in conversations with people who have different perspectives than mine. This variety keeps my mental training fresh and interesting. More importantly, it builds mental flexibility and adaptability. It prepares my mind for unexpected challenges and opportunities. The seventh principle of mental training is intensity and focus. When athletes train, they don't just go through the motions. They train with intensity. They focus completely on what they're doing. They give their full attention and effort to each exercise, each repetition, each practice session. Half-hearted training produces half-hearted results. Distracted training produces confused results. Intense, focused training produces extraordinary results. Your mental training requires the same intensity and focus. You can't multitask your way to mental excellence. You can't casually consume information and expect profound transformation. You can't train your mind while you're distracted and expect significant improvement. When you're reading, read with complete focus. Don't have the television on in the background. Don't check your phone every few minutes. Don't let your mind wander to other tasks. Give your full attention to what you're studying. When you're practicing mental skills, practice with intensity. Don't just go through the motions. Challenge yourself. Push your limits. Demand excellence from your mental performance. When you're reflecting or planning, eliminate distractions. Find a quiet space. Turn off notifications. Give your thinking the respect and attention it deserves. I learned this lesson when I compared my casual learning to my focused learning. When I read while distracted, I remembered very little and gained few insights. When I read with complete focus, I understood more deeply and retained information much longer. When I practiced mental skills half-heartedly, I saw little improvement. When I practiced with intensity and focus, my capabilities improved rapidly. Mental training is not background activity. It's foreground priority. It deserves your best attention and effort. The 8th principle of mental training is periodization. Elite athletes don't train at maximum intensity all year round. They organize their training into periods with different focuses and intensities. They have base building periods, strength building periods, skill development periods, and peak performance periods. This periodization prevents burnout, optimizes adaptation, and ensures that they're at their best when it matters most. Your mental training can benefit from the same periodization. You don't need to push your mental limits every single day. You can organize your mental development into periods with different focuses. You might have periods focused on knowledge acquisition, where you read extensively and consume new information. You might have periods focused on skill development, where you practice specific mental capabilities. You might have periods focused on application, where you implement what you've learned. You might have periods focused on reflection, where you consolidate and integrate your learning. I organize my mental training into quarterly themes. One quarter, I might focus on reading and learning in a specific area. The next quarter, I might focus on applying and implementing what I learned. Another quarter, I might focus on developing specific mental skills through deliberate practice. This periodization keeps my mental training organized and purposeful. It prevents me from trying to do everything at once. It allows me to go deep in specific areas rather than staying shallow in many areas. Periodization also prevents mental training burnout. It provides variety and prevents any single type of mental training from becoming overwhelming or boring. The 9th principle of mental training is coaching and feedback. No elite athlete trains alone. They have coaches who observe their performance, identify weaknesses, suggest improvements, and provide feedback. They have training partners who challenge them and support their development. They understand that outside perspective is invaluable for improvement. They know that expert guidance can accelerate their progress and help them avoid common mistakes. Your mental training can benefit enormously from coaching and feedback. This might come from formal mentors or coaches. It might come from peers who are also committed to mental development. It might come from books, courses, or programs created by experts in mental training. The key is to seek outside perspective on your mental development. Don't try to figure everything out on your own. Learn from people who have already achieved what you want to achieve. Get feedback from people who can see your blind spots and identify areas for improvement. I've had mentors and coaches throughout my mental development journey. Some were formal relationships where I paid for guidance. Others were informal relationships where I learned from their example and advice. All of them accelerated my progress and helped me avoid mistakes. I also sought feedback through books, seminars, and courses. I studied the mental training methods of successful people in various fields. I learned from psychologists, philosophers, athletes, entrepreneurs, and artists. This outside guidance was invaluable. It helped me develop more effective mental training methods. It exposed me to ideas and techniques I never would have discovered on my own. It provided accountability and encouragement during challenging periods. Don't try to develop your mind in isolation. Seek coaching and feedback to accelerate your progress. The 10th principle of mental training is competition and challenge. Athletes don't just train in isolation. They compete against others. They test their abilities in challenging situations. They put their training to the test in real-world conditions. Competition reveals weaknesses that training alone cannot expose. Challenge develops capabilities that comfort cannot build. Testing validates whether training is actually effective. Your mental training needs the same competition and challenge. You need to test your mental capabilities in real-world situations. You need to challenge your thinking against other intelligent minds. You need to put your mental training to work in achieving actual goals. This might mean debating with people who disagree with you. It might mean taking on projects that stretch your mental capabilities. It might mean setting goals that require you to think and perform at higher levels than you've achieved before. It might mean entering competitions that test your knowledge or skills. It might mean teaching others, which forces you to organize and articulate your knowledge clearly. It might mean starting a business, writing a book, or pursuing any challenging goal that requires mental excellence. The key is to move beyond just training your mind to actually using your mind in challenging real-world situations. This practical application tests whether your mental training is actually effective. It reveals areas where you need more development. It builds confidence in your mental capabilities. I've always sought mental challenges that force me to apply what I've learned. Speaking to audiences challenged my ability to organize and communicate ideas clearly. Building a business challenged my strategic thinking and decision-making abilities. Writing books challenged my ability to develop and express complex ideas. These challenges revealed gaps in my mental training that practice alone never exposed. They forced me to develop capabilities I didn't know I needed. They built confidence in my mental abilities that training alone could never provide. Mental training without mental challenge is like physical training without physical competition. It might make you stronger, but you'll never know how strong until you test yourself. Now let me share with you some specific mental exercises that you can use to train your mind like an athlete trains their body. The first mental exercise is focused reading. This is not casual reading for entertainment. This is deliberate, intensive reading for mental development. Choose challenging books that stretch your thinking. Read actively, taking notes, asking questions, making connections. Set specific reading goals and track your progress. Start with 30 minutes of focused reading per day. Gradually increase the duration and difficulty of your reading material. This exercise builds concentration, expands knowledge, and develops analytical thinking. The second mental exercise is daily reflection and journaling. Spend time each day thinking about what you've learned, what challenges you've faced, what decisions you've made. Write down your thoughts, insights, and plans. This exercise develops self-awareness, improves decision-making, and strengthens learning retention. The third mental exercise is problem-solving practice. Deliberately seek out mental challenges and work through them systematically. This might be puzzles, brain teaser, strategic games, or real-world problems. Practice breaking complex problems into smaller parts, generating multiple solutions, and thinking through consequences. This exercise builds analytical thinking and creative problem-solving abilities. The fourth mental exercise is memory training. Practice memorizing information using various techniques like visualization, association, and repetition. Start with simple lists and gradually work up to more complex information like speeches, poems, or detailed processes. This exercise strengthens memory and builds mental discipline. The fifth mental exercise is meditation and mindfulness practice. Spend time each day training your ability to focus, concentrate, and control your thoughts. Start with short periods and gradually extend them. This exercise builds mental control, reduces stress, and improves overall mental performance. The sixth mental exercise is creative thinking practice. Regularly engage in activities that require imagination and innovation. This might be brainstorming, creative writing, artistic pursuits, or inventing solutions to hypothetical problems. This exercise develops creativity and mental flexibility. The seventh mental exercise is speed learning challenges. Practice learning new skills or information as quickly as possible. This might be learning a new language, mastering a new software program, or understanding a new concept. Set time limits and track your improvement. This exercise builds learning efficiency and mental agility. The eighth mental exercise is debate and discussion. Regularly engage in intellectual discussions with intelligent people who may have different viewpoints than yours. Practice articulating your thoughts clearly and understanding others' perspectives. This exercise builds communication skills and critical thinking. The ninth mental exercise is goal setting and planning. Regularly practice setting specific, challenging goals and developing detailed plans to achieve them. This exercise builds strategic thinking and mental organization. The 10th mental exercise is teaching and explaining. Practice teaching others what you've learned. This forces you to organize your knowledge clearly and identify gaps in your understanding. Teaching is one of the most effective ways to deepen your own learning. These mental exercises are like your mental workout routine. Just as athletes have specific physical exercises they practice regularly, you need specific mental exercises to develop your mental capabilities. But remember, mental training is not just about exercises. It's about developing a lifestyle of continuous mental improvement. It's about approaching your mind with the same respect, discipline, and systematic development that athletes approach their bodies. This means being intentional about what you feed your mind. Just as athletes are careful about their nutrition, you must be careful about your mental nutrition. What books are you reading? What podcasts are you listening to? What conversations are you having? What media are you consuming? Low-quality mental input produces low-quality mental output. Garbage in, garbage out. But high-quality mental input produces high-quality mental output. Wisdom in, wisdom out. Be as selective about your mental diet as an athlete is about their physical diet. Choose mental nutrition that builds your capabilities rather than diminishing them. This also means being intentional about your mental environment. Just as athletes train in environments that support peak performance, you must create mental environments that support mental excellence. Eliminate distractions during mental training time. Create quiet spaces for deep thinking. Surround yourself with people who challenge and inspire your thinking. Remove yourself from environments that discourage intellectual growth. Your mental environment has a profound impact on your mental performance. Design it intentionally to support your mental training goals. Mental training also means developing mental habits that support excellence. Just as athletes develop physical habits that support peak performance, you must develop mental habits that support mental excellence. This includes habits like starting each day with mental training, ending each day with reflection, constantly asking questions, seeking to understand before seeking to be understood, and approaching challenges as opportunities for growth rather than threats to be avoided. These mental habits become the foundation of mental excellence. They make mental training automatic rather than forced. They integrate mental development into your daily life rather than treating it as a separate activity. But perhaps most importantly, mental training means developing the mindset of a mental athlete. This means taking pride in your mental fitness. It means constantly working to improve your mental capabilities. It means never being satisfied with mental mediocrity. Mental athletes understand that their mind is their most important tool for success. They treat it with respect. They invest in its development. They push it to perform at its highest level. They understand that mental training is not a luxury. It's a necessity. They understand that mental development is not optional. It's essential. They understand that mental excellence is not accidental. It's intentional. Most people treat their minds like casual exercisers treat their bodies. They work on mental development when they feel like it. They learn when it's convenient. They think seriously when they have to rather than because they want to. But mental athletes are different. They train their minds like professional athletes train their bodies, consistently, systematically, intensively, purposefully. And just like professional athletes achieve extraordinary physical results through their training, mental athletes achieve extraordinary life results through their mental training. They earn more money because they think more effectively. They solve bigger problems because they've developed superior problem-solving abilities. They achieve bigger goals because they've built stronger mental capabilities. They live richer lives because they've developed richer minds. This is the power of training your mind like an athlete trains their body. This is the advantage of treating mental development with the same seriousness that athletes treat physical development. So let me ask you, are you ready to become a mental athlete? Are you ready to train your mind with the same discipline that athletes train their bodies? Are you ready to develop mental capabilities that will transform your life? If you are, then start today. Start right now. Begin with one mental exercise. Commit to daily mental training. Create a mental training plan just like athletes create physical training plans. Set mental training goals. Track your mental training progress. Seek coaching and feedback for your mental development. Challenge your mind with increasingly difficult mental tasks. Treat your mind like the valuable asset it is. Invest in its development. Push it to perform at its highest level. Train it like your success depends on it, because it does. Your mind is capable of extraordinary things, but only if you train it to achieve extraordinary things. Your thinking can produce extraordinary results, but only if you develop extraordinary thinking capabilities. The choice is yours. You can continue to let your mind develop randomly, accidentally, casually. Or you can take control of your mental development and train your mind like an athlete trains their body. You can continue to accept average mental performance. Or you can commit to mental excellence. You can continue to hope for better results with the same thinking. Or you can develop better thinking to produce better results. Elite athletes don't accept physical mediocrity. They train relentlessly to achieve physical excellence. Mental athletes don't accept mental mediocrity. They train relentlessly to achieve mental excellence. Which will you choose? Will you be a casual mental exerciser or a mental athlete? Will you dabble in mental development or commit to mental excellence? Your mind is waiting for an answer. Your future is waiting for an answer. Your success is waiting for an answer. What will your answer be?